Alright guys, welcome back to another 72 Addo Adventure video. Today we're going to be updating our tier list and changing it a lot actually, because it is our 6-month anniversary. So I really do want to change things around because the game has progressed a lot since when we first started it and made our first tier list during even the beta. Of course, we do have 4 new characters to be ranked here, being Elaine, King, Derieri, and also Gowther, because it's been about 2 each month since we made our last tier list. And I kind of only want to make tier list when there's a big update, so more or less towards a new festival character. Festivals being Berserk Melee, Zeldris, now Gowther. So the next one would be more likely King Escanor whenever he decides to come towards the game in like 2 months time for like the 8th-month celebration. But let's change some things around. So I'm going to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Harsh, I guess, on some characters, and that's moving down these epic characters. If you lot were around when this game first came out, there was a certain like use them a little bit, just because everyone was starting to get the characters high enough. No one could really get legendaries, and the best characters we could be using at the time were mostly unique characters. So there was some justification to use those 4 characters, or those 3, because Ruin removed buffs, but now we have like people with characters like Merlin that you can literally just not even use him. His crit chance is probably way too low now, and you had some use of like a full light team, which is one of the better teams to use at the start of the game. Then Gowther was one of the better blue DPSs, but now you're Berserk Melee, there's no way you're ever going to use him. And then Solad, fun enough, was one of the only characters in the game that kind of got nerfed. He had like some energy gain stuff, but now there's no point using them, so we're gonna move them all down now. Then we're gonna move Elizabeth up. She is just, it's too good, bro. I'm not gonna lie. The shields in like every situation, tower trials, PvP, knighthood bosses, everything is like you're putting in every single team. The heals are good, the best heals in the game, and a double shield that stops 2 damage hits is like, yeah, it's too good. We're putting her up a little bit. Then we're gonna be moving up Lilia actually, because when we first spoke about her, I personally didn't see the use in her too much, right? So remember when I made my last tier list, it was a few days after Zeldris release, so we're still adjusting, trying to figure out what the best team was for him. And at the core, Lilia is like, it's so bad in a way. Like, Star Force, increase in final damage by normal skills and accuracy. It's like, okay, it's okay buff, right? But when you put it in the context of like knighthood bosses with Zeldris, where Zeldris, if you lot know what Zeldris actually does do, you know, he can only use normal skills. And every single time he uses 5 normal skills, there's an AoE skill that increases attack speed. So Zeldris is constantly doing like 100 normal skills per game, so getting a 4% damage increase in that is actually massive. And also when it comes towards night bosses, getting more accuracy is a little bit more value in that game mode, because actually doing more damage towards the bosses, they increase their stats, so they will get to a point where their evasion is so high that you'll start missing. But with the 5% extra accuracy, it's actually not too bad. But yeah, this skill is still bad though, because like if you look at it like at face value when she came out, she was kind of meant to count as synth characters, and it was just bad. It's still not great. Damage is decent for like title trials though. So yeah, we're definitely moving her up. It's funny, someone left a comment saying you're sleeping on Lilia. I was like, maybe I am a little bit. I was a bit harsh, and I asked for you lot's feedback a little bit. And then someone told me, yeah, she's used all the knighthood bosses, which I didn't see when I checked my ranking. And then after the reset, boom, everyone was using her. And I started using her. So yeah, we're going to be moving Lilia up. In terms of other stuff though, we want to probably move some stuff down, right? I'm almost tempted to put Merlin up. That crit chance is too good, especially with Berserk Melee, where you just get 20% crit chance, you're doing more AoEs consistently. Like, honestly, she's whenever I'm using Berserk Melee, I always have her on my team if I can. But maybe not, because it's not every single team, because you are sometimes very, very restricted when it comes to those night bosses. So we're leaving there for now, but we're definitely going to be moving down Gallant. Look, guys, he's no longer the best blue DPS in the game when he first came out. There's just zero point of using Gallant when you have a Berserk Melee. Berserk Melee is doing more damage AoE than Gallant does single target, right? Like, AoE is just better, and even when it's a 1v1 boss, Berserk Melee is still doing so much more damage. And the fact they've given out so many free copies, I mean, only a few weeks ago they gave like 5 free copies of Berserk Melee through like a daily mission. And I think my Berserk Melee is higher than my Gallant, right? Because you just have more opportunities to get. Yeah, look at my Gallant. Granted, I've spent a few copies onto the Berserk Melee, and when you do get tickets that can guarantee him, you are always picking Berserk Melee, so that's kind of why he's a lot higher. But I just like, with Berserk Melee being the best character in the game, there's just no reason not to actually use Gallant. So I'm moving him down. We're also going to be moving down the Immortality characters. There's kind of a reason why Deanne drew it in there. That is because at the time, Immortality was very, very good at the start of the game. But now in this point in this game, you need more than Immortality. And Derieri is a proof of that, that sometimes that even having Immortality with a sort of good kit is still not enough, especially when Esteros is the best tank in the game. you don't need immortality if you can deal a lot of damage back, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, just sometimes you still want to use it, but no longer the S tier. Derieri, we're moving down to... We'll keep Glucksania in there. The main reason why is because at least if you have a Glucksania with a Zeldris, you're still getting some crit damage, so there's still some synergy there a little bit, but also because there's no one to really buff up blue healing. I mean, there's still King, but I'm really tempted to move King down. I'm not enjoying him too much. I think King increasing 20% attack through an ultimate is so slow, and when you see later on, like someone like Elaine, it's just like, it's a bit better to have on a special skill. But once again, there's just no point using Derieri when you have Elizabeth in the game. You're better off just using her. You get a shield and heals twice as much, basically. Diane, we're moving down to. She is a character that I really liked, and I wanted to, you know, tell a lot of you lot saying, hey, this character is really good, because when you're progressing through a lot of stages early on, there are a lot of boss fights that have CC immunity, but they're not immune towards petrification. And especially one of the hardest bosses at the time was like the Sword Demon, who does a lot of damage, AoE, if you've played against it, you know what I mean. And being able to petrify the boss like 2 seconds gave you enough time to really once again do more damage, but also to kind of stop him doing a lot of attacks. And the only way to do that was using that Diane with Petrify. And there were a few bosses every now and again, like through events, that were like kind of decent for it. So I really liked her, but now there's no point, especially when you have this new Diane who doesn't petrify reliably through the ultimate. You can't control when to happen, but she does do it on a single target now, and you're probably just better off using more AoE damage too. I really want to move Melee down, because it's the same situation as Gallant. Why would you use him when you have Berserk Melee? I know they're 2 different colors, but for the sake of it, we'll keep him S tier just because he's got the synergy with Sins, so it's not too bad, right? Then I guess I'm going to move Grimmore up. Someone left a comment saying Grimmore is really good for when you can use him for when you have to, apply break. Yeah, for some reason his ultimate, it's more like a bug if anything, but in Night Bosses you have to apply the debuff 3 times to proc the weakness. But for some reason in Grimmore, and I've noticed it, whenever he does it, it procs 3 times. It automatically just breaks his shield like the first attempt. It's more so a bug, but we'll allow it. Plus, you know what? The more you dupe him out, there's the reason why we didn't like Grimmore too much early on. The Veil buff does absorb damage based off his HP, but you couldn't dupe him out. Where now at this point in the game, people should be getting him up a little bit. So we'll move him up a tier, why not? And I think I'm happy with this, you know. Yeah, I think we can now move on towards the new characters. And we have a lot to say about these ones. So we'll start off with Elaine. All right, so I actually really like Elaine. So she's a cool character because she is like the first like true AoE character in the game, in a sense where she doesn't have a special skill because it doesn't deal damage. It's a buff skill. But, you know, outside of that, she always spams these normal skills, which have a little bit AoE towards it. It's 2 meter. It's not crazy, but it is a normal skill. But yeah, this is a really good buff skill. The main reason why is because what you're going to be doing is giving every 5 seconds green characters a 20% attack buff for a special skill. Once again, I'm not really using King too much nowadays because using an ultimate to get 20% attack buff is sometimes a bit too slow, especially when you're trying to use big important ultimates early on. So someone like Elaine literally applies that at the start of the battle, but it's also in sync most of the time with your actual Estarossa. So Estarossa, whenever he does his full counter, which is just insane right now in the game, whenever it comes towards like Tower Trials or even PvP, he's sometimes doing the most damage in the game because you're just tanking for so long while also dealing so much, like billions of damage back. It's actually insane. So having a 20% attack buff on top of that, while also getting the fairy protection, and bear in mind the fairy protection ability does go towards every character rather than just green. So even if you got like a monocolor team with like a Berserk Melee and the team is blue, he is still going to be getting these buffs. So yeah, we do not mind that. I really do like Elaine. And the ultimate is pretty decent, big AoE, decent damage. Like, you'd be surprised, by the way, if you actually use her. And bear in mind, she's on the high dupes, right? She surprisingly sometimes does do a lot of damage. If my Berserk Melee in PvP dies a little bit too early, she's doing more damage than him, of course, because he died too early. But that is because she can stay in the back line because she has got 65 range and just slowly chip him down while also buffing up your Estarossa. And also, you ignore attribute damage, which it's worded so weird to me. But I'm pretty sure it's like, oh, okay, if someone's green and the type advantage, against blue characters, they do 20% more actual attack, right? And like accuracy, 5% actually. She removes that, right? So they're not doing that 5% extra damage dealt. I believe that's what it is. So, you know, she's got a use and actually really good in Tower Trials. So we'll put her in S tier. You can use her in PvP. You can use her, not so much in normal stages. You have better things to be doing. But you can also use her in Tower Trials. And you can also use her in base defense. She's not like as good as Derieri, we're going to talk about in a second. But there are a few people that use her because the main gimmick you're doing, I believe, is number 5. You're this person. Got to wave, 96, using Elaine. Because, of course, the big thing is buffing up Estaros's attack. While also green characters too. So you can also buff up your your actual mon speed. The tankiness isn't as important in base defense. Sometimes, I guess, and I don't think you typically die in base defense. It's a matter of fact of you trying to clear it fast enough with enough damage. So again, 20% extra attack is always good. Plus, once again, she's got some decent AoE damage, and when there's a horde of enemies, it's pretty good. So yeah, really like Elaine. So moving on towards King. Now, King is actually, I think, really bit underrated. I think he's actually really good. The only problem is, a lot of people don't have him duped out. I think once we start duping this character out, I'd rather use him in PvP than Escanor. The main reason why is because he just has the range. He's like our first range DPS character. Granted, there's characters that have range that can do DPS, like obviously Elaine, for example. But a pure sit at the back line while doing some stupid damage. He's only 6-star for me. And sometimes he does unreal damage, especially if you pair it up with Elaine, that can then give him the 20% attack buff. A little bit RNG, a little bit, because he's got applied this disaster debuff, which has 25% chance. And then it is fallen stacks. By the time he uses the ultimate, it can do even more damage. But right now, there's not that many red characters in the meta. We just got Gowther, so you're starting to see a little bit of them. But he is obviously type advantage towards red characters. There can be some good ways to get rid of the red characters. So maybe if Gowther picks up a little bit, he might be really good. But yeah, it's just a matter of fact, people know I'm duped out. I think it's really good. Tower Trials, of course, really good. You really do need, he probably is the best damage deal a little bit, maybe next to Zeldris once he starts ramping up a little bit. But even then, Zeldris is sometimes very slow. So in terms of like just raw damage, I really do like him. He's a Sin as well, so he gets the Merlin buff. He gets all the other buffs that come along with buff being a Sin character. I think given time, I think you'll grow on a lot of us. Our next character is Derieri. Now, Derieri is going to go in the A tier, which is kind of the reason why I moved down Draw and Diane, because those are immortality characters. It's kind of the reason why I use those characters, where the Derieri is the mortality but better, but she just did not perform as much as I thought she would. She's got a pretty good AoE ability. 944% attack onto all enemy within a 5-meter radius. Grants dragon scale towards herself and just tank characters, which more or less applies towards Esterosa, which is going to give them a 20% attack buff and also reduce their cooldowns. But there's only 5 seconds, though. It's not 10 seconds. Like go back towards Elaine, right? Elaine gives your green characters, more or less your Esterosas, kind of the reason why you're using those characters together. She does the attack buff every 5 seconds for 3 seconds. Granted, it's 2 seconds lower. But look at Esterosa's counter. It only lasts 3 seconds. And you don't have to use an ultimate for it. PvP, her damage wasn't great. The mortality is cool sometimes, but like, I'd rather just have more damage and rather use someone like King, for example, who isn't going to die because he's in the backline. I was saying it, to be fair, if we ever get like a tank DPS in the future, then that is when, you know, she might shine a little bit. But when she does shine, of course, is the main use for the character is simply in base defense part 2. That is it. I mean, granted, this person didn't use it. It might have been a while ago. But you're seeing like, Gowther's there. Wow, that's a surprise. But everyone is using, I guess it's only because of the bonus for having the silver buff, right? But yeah, literally, Derieri is like Derieri, Monspe, and Esterosa, the 3 goats now of base defense part 2. So that is literally her use. Outside of that, Tower Trials, she could do a lot of damage, but there's just no point because you want to use Berserk melee. Granted, you will get to a point where you need more than just Berserk melee, so the damage is like okay, but it's not like, yo, I need this Derieri. You got 1 copy for free, which is perfect because even at level 1, you can use her for the immortality. You might as well. And you still give the attack buff towards Esterosa. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of her. Then we move in towards Gowther. Do we put him in the SS tier? How do I feel about it? I don't know. I actually have a lot of use for him. So, first, I think he's actually really good in PvP. The AoE on the ultimate hits basically everyone on the field, so they're always going to get hit with the debuffs. And guys, I'm not going to lie to you, I really, really do like these debuffs. Probably even more so than Monspeed, because Monspeed is a straight line. Sometimes it can miss people, and sometimes it can be kind of annoying. But I do want to show you this clip. So, this is a clip, granted, it's for Tower Trials. If you lot play Tower Trials, if you actually pay attention and notice it, Esterosa is the most annoying character to verse in Tower Trials because, of course, he has a full counter. And if you actually look at when your characters attack him, they die very, very quickly. If you bring someone like, obviously, Berserk Medios, you can see his HP get deleted. Escanor gets deleted, right? Because you're doing so much damage towards them. And when they're level 1,400, they're going to basically just one-shot all your DPSs. However, if you put in Gowther, for example, where Gowther can then hit the actual Esterosa because he is a tank character, so he's going to get hit with Tempered Memories, which means you're going to lower the actual attack and crit chance by 20% and the attack by 30%, which means his counter is now not dealing as much damage, so now you're not going to get one-shotted. Just those little things in the control you have over Gowther, I really do like when it comes towards Tower Trials. Now, granted, I'm not going to use him in every single team. And in fact, you actually still probably rather use the OG Gowther when it comes towards energy restoration and skill cooldowns, when it comes towards like Knighthood bosses and sometimes a lot of bosses, but you can still use both together. He's definitely more made for PvP because his evasion arrow, whenever you use the ultimate skill, special skill, is going to lower the target's energy by 10, which, I mean, it does work in PvE content, but it's, I think, more noticeable in PvP when you can see the ultimate's trying to go off. And to this, a lot of bosses have abilities on a timer rather than energy. The blackout itself is pretty massive, actually. It hits almost everyone in the field. The silence itself is like, you won't notice it, but I'm sure it does do something. Like, silence everyone every, like, what, 1 second, every 5 seconds. It might cancel 1 or 2 abilities, but with so much stuff going on, you probably won't ever notice it. But the damage is good, though. Like, I actually really like this Gowther. But is he on the same tier as the other bad boys up here? And I'm starting to not get too much use out of Monster anymore. And, like, I really do think Monster and, like, Gowther on, like, the exact same tier a little bit, where sometimes, especially when you are versing someone who is a support character or debuffer, then you know you're going to get that increased damage dealt, which means you're going to do more damage. I'd actually rather use the actual Gowther in this situation. But yeah, I think I am happy with SS because I am noticing I'm switching him in when I need him, where the ones at the bottom can same situation, but it's more like, okay, I mean, I need Merlin more probably with the crit chance, but like, it's only the crit chance. Like, her ultimate is terrible. Her damage is like, that's literally your only use of the crit chance. I would say the ST is more like, okay, you can use them a lot of times and sometimes in situations, maybe more or less towards night bosses like Diane and Lilia. But when you need Gowther, sometimes he's the only one you can bring. So, yeah, guys, that is going to wrap up our tier list. Maybe I should move up these characters down here too because they are legendaries, so they have got use. I'll probably move up Matrona. These are really bad though. Their stats are they suck. Plus, Nanashi wants to kill. It's never going to kill anything in this game. I really don't like him. Someone did suggest we move up Hellbrum because the evasion down can be decent on bosses. However, you only use him in night bosses. And even then, the evasion is based off a crit. And kind of right now, there's no character in the game that can increase the crit chance for blue characters or even fairies. Sure, you can get the attack buff, but you're not getting the crit chance buff. So I think if we do ever get one, we'll move Hellbrum up and towards the A tier. Slater's stats suck. This Gila can be useful a little bit in like Tower Trials because you do want some more green damage, but even then, I'm not really feeling it. So yeah, I think I'm happy with this tier list. A lot of changes, but I think I'm definitely more comfortable with this one now. I feel like a lot of people are going to be sleeping on Gowther, but he's actually really, really good. I actually really like him. And my game is bugged, but he has been like my main team even when it comes towards normal stages because, I mean, to be fair, think about it, we use Barn a lot, and I even use Barn now, I think sometimes, when just to get the attack low by 20% on his ultimate. Gowther's doing that 30% and low on crit chance. And whenever they switch over towards like an actual support character, like if you get past the Gallon fight, like these little minions here, it's a support character. I'm now dealing more damage towards them. It's really good. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think of my tier list. And yeah, once again, I'm always open towards the criticism and changing some things later on. We'll be back very, very soon. So guys, thank you for watching. And yeah, peace.